Hey guys, welcome to this YouTube video. So today we're gonna talk about the positioning of the landing gears. And I want you for a second to look at this picture, and I want you to notice the position of the landing gears. I want you to notice the position of the nose gear, and I also want you to notice especially the position of the main landing gears. So today in this video we'll try and place the main landing gears at the tail cone and see how it goes. So in order to do that, we will have a dummy plane here, our Airbus A380, and we will try and see how it handles with the main landing gears at the tail cone. So first things first, before a plane flies, it has to be on the runway just to get up to speed. So this Airbus of ours will have to be speeding down the runway in order to take off. And we notice that at some point, the plane is supposed to pitch up so that it gets into the skies, which you call a rotate. The plane will have to rotate in order to get to the skies. So how do we achieve this in a normal aircraft? At that point, the pilot will pull back on the control column, which will cause the elevators to subject the airplane to some downforce. And of course, noticing that the aircraft is pivoted by the landing gears right close to the center of gravity, is that the plane's tail will move a little downwards as the nose of the plane rises up in the air, and what it gains that specific pitch which it requires for liftoff, the plane will soar into the skies. So with our Airbus A380 with the main landing gears close to the tail cone, we notice that there is no way the elevators can cause a downforce on this plane while on the runway. So this plane cannot pitch up on the runway so that it will take off. So with that kind of a setup, the plane might not even get airborne. But let's say, for example, a miracle has happened and the plane has gotten airborne. How are we going to land this plane with the main landing gears at the extreme end of the plane? We'll notice that a plane's center of gravity is somewhere close to its center, right where the wings are joined to it. And we notice that a plane, while approaching for a landing, it will be coming in at a glide slope, and this plane will want to maintain this glide slope until it hits the runway, whereby it's now going to be going parallel with the runway. So if we have our main gears right close to the tail cone, and the plane is coming in at a glide slope, this main landing gear will be the first to hit the ground, and by the fact that the center of gravity is very far away from it, somewhere ahead of it, that will cause a turning effect on this plane, which is the tail of the plane will move upwards. If we are assuming that the shocks are not as soft enough, the plane might bounce. So the tail of the plane might be kicked up, and the nose will be coming down into the runway, and that might not be a good feeling for the people inside this our aluminium cinema. So another thing that might happen is that if the tail doesn't bounce off, then as this plane will be coming in for landing, the main landing gears will hit the ground first. Then, because the center of gravity is still accelerating towards the runway, it will cause the nose of the plane to travel and hit the runway at twice the speed. And that also won't be a good feeling for the people inside our dummy aircraft here. So those are some of the reasons why we will always want to position our main landing gears closer to the center of gravity. But we also know that, of course, at the closer to the center of gravity, that's where we have the wings attached, and that is a very roomy place, so that might also be another reason as to why we have our landing gears there, because we have a lot of space to store them. And I also want you to look at this picture here. Notice the distance between the main landing gears, and I want you to know that that distance determines the stability of that aircraft while it's on the ground. So The best way to achieve that distance is by mounting the main landing gears right under the wing section, so that you can have a wider base area of support while the plane is on the ground. So that comes in handy, and that one will also be one of the reasons as to why we usually have our main landing gears closer to the center of gravity. So with that, we also need to know that there are limitations, or there are drawbacks of having our main landing gears closer to the center of gravity, and that would be that when we have our landing gears closer to the center of gravity, it means our airplane is more likely to have a tail strike than if we didn't have that configuration of a landing gear. So a tail strike is when a plane pitches up, maybe while taking off, then it causes the tail section of the plane to hit the runway as it's lifting off. So that is because we have our main landing gear somewhere closer to the center of gravity, like in this picture over here, which will mean that it's more likely, or it's prone to having a tail strike if the control stick is pushed violently. So one thing you notice for sure is that as the plane is lifting off into the air, the nose of the plane has to pitch up, just like in this picture of that Note 262. So we also have supersonic speed aircrafts like the Concorde, which have to maintain lift at low speeds, like the takeoff speed, and also maintain lift at high speeds, like when it's going at Mach 2. What we notice is that this plane will tend to have a higher pitch while it's at slow speed to compensate for the loss of lift due to reduced speed. And that will mean that as this plane is approaching for a landing, it will be coming down into the runway while pitched more violently than a usual aircraft pitches when it's coming in for an approach. So that will mean that if we have our landing gears closer to the center of gravity, it also means we are again very likely to have a tail strike. So what do? We will make the landing gears longer, like you can see in this picture of a Concorde. The landing gears are very extended so that the plane is very high up in the sky. So we are trying to reduce into the risks of having a tail strike. And so what we've talked about so far basically concerns the tricycle configuration of landing gears, but we also have many other configurations like the bicycle configuration, which is a landing gear close to the nose, and another single landing gear somewhere behind the center of gravity. Another configuration is the conventional landing gear configuration. So this is one whereby we have the main landing gears in front of the center of gravity, and we have another landing gear behind, which we call a tail drag. So in this configuration, we notice that the main landing gears are in front of the center of gravity, but they are still very close to the center of gravity. And you would ask that if we have another landing gear right under the tail cone, under the elevator, so how will we able to achieve a gain of pitch while driving down the runway as we are trying to climb up into the air? So what we notice is that in this kind of configuration, the plane is naturally pitched up. So while in circumstances of takeoff, all we need is to gain speed, and the plane will be lifting up in the air when it gets to that specific speed that it requires for lift. And so this configuration of course has some drawbacks, which is like it has low vision because the cockpit is pointed up in the air. The pilot gets very little vision of what's ahead of the runway. So in this configuration also, when the plane is coming in for a landing, the main gears will be the first to touch the ground. So to this point, we can notice that there's some things that apply to all airplanes, matters landing gear, and that is we have to have the main landing gears and another landing gear. And what we notice is the main landing gears has to be closest to the center of gravity in all cases. And we also notice that the main landing gear has to be the first to touch the ground during a landing, and it has to be the last during a takeoff. We also notice that the center of gravity has to be, of course, between these two landing gears, which is the main landing gear and maybe the nose landing gear, or if in a conventional configuration, then it's the tail dragger. So to this point, I think we have explained the reason as to why we have our landing gears positioned in the places where they are, and I think we're all contented with that. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.